Hello, welcome everyone to GeoShapes V2. Some new updates bring some new nodes and some new objects, of course, and some new functionality that I kind of discovered as I went along. So let's get started. Let's get started with a clock. Why not a clock? Let's dive into the modifiers property. So we can obviously control the hours and the minutes and the seconds using the hands. Amazing. Change the number size, all that good stuff. We can change kind of where the ticks are, how big and long they are. We can change the hand size. Amazing. Just amazing. Rim size. Amazing. Everything's amazing. I need to stop saying it because I'm annoying myself. But anyways, yeah, there's a fair amount of different attributes you can change here. So just a cool little object that you can have to play with. One new thing about GeoNodes V2 is some of the objects have this random material applied to it. So let's dive in to see how that works. So let's go into the node tree. So we can see here that there's these new random material nodes that I created, the node group. So basically it's taking an object and applying a bunch of different materials to it, and then we are selecting what material we want to use. So when the random material seed is set to -1, this feature is active. So basically we're allowed to select what material in the stack that the numbers apply to. So this is the numbers that are running through this node. So as we change this, we're going to start to see that the material changes according to what we have in this material ABCD stack. So yeah, so whenever you see random material seed at -1, you can use this kind of feature right here. When it's set to 0, that means nothing is being passed through, or the geometry is being passed through without getting any of the material settings. So yeah, but then if you go above that, you can start to do random. So it's applying a random material to every different, I guess, node group that it's being passed through. So lots of different variations there, and this can be applied to many different objects. One thing I want to point out with version 2 is that we have kind of a new way to kind of help when we're setting up scenes. So let's say, for instance, we want to put it on top of an egg. For whatever reason, we want this clock on top of an egg. So we're just going to go into our viewport and just kind of align the egg and the clock. So if we go over to the clock, we can see there's a node group called Scene Helper. As right now, there's no real changes to the object because all these are set to the default value. But if we go to this object reference and we change it to egg, nothing happens. However, if we go to on object Z, it's basically kind of grounding it onto that object. So now it rests on top of the egg. And I did this because I was tired of moving objects after, say I wanted to resize the egg, I made it taller, then I would have to then adjust the clock. But then I figured out how to do this. It's not that hard, but it allows me to kind of change the object below it and not have to worry about the object above it. So this just helps when you're composing scenes with a lot of these objects to just kind of align the top of them. You also can align the object based off the X, Y, and Z things here. Actually, we don't want to change the egg. We want to change the clock. Right, so this far edge of the clock is hitting that egg. So if we bring this down to 0, we can see that a little bit better. So the widest part of the egg and the widest part of the clock, boom, they line up. So that's just a little helpful thing that you can use to help align objects and minimize kind of the tweaking involved. So that being said, let's go into one of the other new objects. So one of the new objects is a very simple kind of a, what is it called? Akkahedron, something like that. So it's basically an icosphere that has been dual meshed. At first glance, it seems pretty simple, straightforward, cool. But with the new extrude nodes in 3.1, we can start to have a little more fun with that. So we can start changing this up, just kind of playing with the parameters, and you can start create some cool just kind of geometric shapes. So yeah, there's some cool things that you can do with geometry nodes now, and only cooler things will be happening in the future. So just goes to show you that the shape that you see might change over time as you play with it. All right, another thing that we have here is pi-a-lot. So it's basically the new arc node, and using that to create these kind of pi shapes. So we can change the count of the pi. It goes up to, I think 40 is the max that I created. We could technically add more, but just to keep geometry down, I kept it to 40. So let's just go to good 18, why not? Then we obviously can change kind of the resolution of the pies itself. You can kind of see it change geometry, you can change the radius, amazing. And then we also can start changing the odd and even bands that we have going on here. But then we have this depth ratio, which is kind of cool. So it's basically going to be adding 0.1 to every step that we have. This is also taking into account the odd and even, so we can kind of adjust the odd and even to have like a staircase. We're going to go over to ground element, so it kind of all sits on the ground. So then we can, make some cool staircases or spiral things. And also there is a depth ratio type. So when it's 0, it is an additional, like adds negative 0.4 to each step. Now, we'll just set this to 0.1. So it's adding 0.1 to each step. If we change this to a 1, this is going to change this from addition to multiplication. So multiplying each step by 0.1, it's not going to be very much. So let's just go to 1.5. All right, so boom, we can see that it's an exponential growth, growing super duper high. So let's just bring that down to like 1.1 just to have it a little bit more reasonable. So yeah, you can do that. Also have kind of like a random depth. So when the random depth is triggered, the strength is not doing anything because the random depth seed is 0. So it's basically a way of like turning it off. But if we do anything higher than that, then we can start doing the random depth of the objects. And then of course this can be manipulated still. So we're just going to put this back to 0 so there's no random depth. And we also have this random material seed, so we can add random materials to our objects, which is super fun. All right, so that is one other one. Let's go into the slice cube. So we have a slice cube, slice cone, and a sliced sphere. Lots of sliced objects. So basically this is a Boolean operation going on here. It's pretty quick. It's not as laggy as some of the others. So we can just do things of, adding different slices to the object and the slice size. So we can kind of make them bigger or smaller based off of the wedge that we're going for. And then we also have the slice rotation. So say we wanted to cut an object in a kind of a unique way, we can do that. So there you go. Next object we are going to look at is the playing card. So pretty self-explanatory, straightforward. We can change the symbol on the card, and we can change the value of the card. We also can change basically all the attributes as well. So if we want to make it a really wide card, or a really tall one, or a really deep one, we can do that. Or change the size of different parts of the card. So we can always change to our heart's content like everything else. And perfect. We can change the corners, right? If we wanted big corners or rounded corners, however we want those corners, we can do that too. So cool thing to play around with. And then we also have a rainbow. Everybody loves rainbows. So we can change the height of the arc and then kind of change some of the arc parameters so it kind of gives some funky things going on. We can change the count of the rings. Don't go too high because then you never know what will happen. And another attribute that is new to V2 is this round one. So basically when this is 0, it's going to be like a square profile. And then if I switch it to 1, which is switching it on, it turns into a round profile. So now we can activate this round resolution and change the vertices of that. Perfect. And then we can change the thickness. The thickness is based off of the overall radius and then the count of them as well. So it's kind of a percentage based. Cool thing is this instance position. We can set the instance position based off of kind of the thickness of the bands we got going. We're just going to switch this back to a square band, and then we can have this rotation here. So, and there you have GeoShapes version 2 out now. So go pick up your copy right now so you can add over 200 objects to your scene. Lots of cool things to play around with. New shapes, new ideas, a tree. I mean, who doesn't like adding trees? Or we've got, ooh, look, a spade. Beautiful. But who needs a spade when we have a playing card? Yeah, all editable, all fun to play with GeoShapes.